I'm Caitlin Coombs with Energeticcity.ca, and welcome to Council Corner, powered by the City of Fort St. John. Today we are talking with Mayor Lilia Hansen about, and this episode is a little bit different. We'll be talking about the Union of BC Municipalities Convention, more commonly referred to as UBCM. So, Mayor, how are you doing today?
It's a great day. I just love to see the sunshine outside and 100th Street is open.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And especially with the colder mornings we've had, it's nice to have a little bit of sun when you step out and you can see your breath a little bit.
Yeah, beautiful brisk day outside.
Wonderful. So let's get started with, for those who may not know, what is UBCM? What is it and what makes it so important that it would happen every year?
It gives elected officials an opportunity to meet with government ministers and their executive staff to have sit-down meetings across the table, face-to-face, and to say, you know, here's some of the issues that we're facing, some of the policies that perhaps government has initiated, what are the unintended consequences, and we can give detailed examples of how it's affecting our community. Mm-hmm. And I think what's really important is, you know, how something might work in the South is not the same as in other parts of the province.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a good way of putting it. And as I understand it, municipalities can put in a request for different meetings with ministers and staff members that they would want to attend. What are some of the highlight ones that Fort St. John attended this year?
In our community, we're hearing a lot of concerns, whether it's mental health, public safety, drug addictions, homelessness encampments. We also have just recently the announcement from CanFor. Mm-hmm. We've just lost 220 jobs that will be gone by the end of 2024.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I understand that parts of the Premier's address were also released. I mean, those of us on the outside, we can see the clips that UBCM releases. What were some of the things that stood out to you in that address?
While I appreciate Premier Eby was giving a touchstone throughout the province of things affecting communities, I was a little dismayed, you know, to be truthful, that the City of Fort St. John was not mentioned when he announced the closure of CanFor mm-hmm. in the city of Vanderhoof. Nothing was said about Fort St. John. Mm-hmm. That Fort St. John, also in the same announcement, when CanFor announced that they'd be closing Vanderhoof and Fort St. John, I believe that the Premier missed an opportunity to show awareness mm-hmm. as well as compassion in the Fort St. John area. But I also believe, you know, I have to say it, it also reflects how many in our community feel that the provincial government has overall for the North. Mm-hmm. It's not the same awareness or the attention. Mm-hmm. And that's something, it's too bad. They've done a lot of great work as well, mm-hmm. but when you totally blow off, you know, a municipality that has concerns, mm-hmm. and it's not just 220 jobs, it's 220 families, mm-hmm. not to mention the contractors and the spin-off jobs on mm-hmm. that, and it will affect our community. We do have a roundtable that we're working together. We'll have Work BC will mm-hmm. be there. Northern Lights College will have representatives from the Ministry of Jedi will be there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, how can we help these displaced employees? Do they need training? Is there other jobs available right now that we can put them into? I think it's important that we have that discussion. But I'd like to skip back to a meeting I had with Minister Farnsworth. Mm-hmm. And we had brought forward a request asking the government to initiate the Community Safety Amendment Act. I believe the initial act was developed back in 2012, and then it came back in 2019 to be updated. We want them to help push it across the finish line. What this would do, it would give a municipality more teeth to address areas of Fort St. John, specifically a residence that there's many calls for RCMP service there. Yeah. In a nutshell, what it comes down to, residents in Fort St. John are frustrated with revolving doors through the court system, being afraid to let their kids out in the front yard if there's concerns that there's going to be shots fired from a house. We do have one house in particular that over the last 2 years, there has been so many RCMP calls to it. And what do? There was shots fired outside. There were shots fired from inside this house that went into a neighboring house, into their kitchen. And the residents are frustrated. How is this right? Like, this has to stop. Like, stop the madness. And while there's not one silver solution to this, the Community Safety Amendment Act would just give, as a municipality, the teeth to work in conjunction with the RCMP and our bylaw staff on that. So we definitely have to do something. And while when it comes to the court system, it doesn't fall under the umbrella traditionally as a municipality's role, but you talk to your neighbors and they want help. And when it comes to elected officials at a municipal level, you're going to see us. We're going to be at the schools or the playgrounds or the grocery stores, and people will come talk to us and they'll share. We did hold a town hall meeting, and it was needed to be done. And we brought in the RCMP, and we had our executive staff there with the city, and council was there. And we were able to say, this is what we're doing today. This is our plan. This is what can be done. And it's important to have those conversations. But when it comes down to it, conversations only go so far, and people also get frustrated if they're just saying, talking. What are you going to do about it? That's the bottom line. And so having the Community Safety Amendment Act will give us, the tools that we need on that. We also want to talk about encampment issues. Again, the residents, people just want to lead peaceful lives. They just want to go to work, have their kids go to school. They don't want to be afraid to go use our public parks or walk to a downtown business. And they'll come again to the municipality going, what are you doing about this? You got to do something about this. And I respect those requests. We are here to work for our residents. While mental health and housing and addictions, again, doesn't fall under the municipality, but where do these other people, where do the residents go? It's not as easy to get hold of someone at a provincial level, who is responsible, who is receiving tax dollars to provide these services. So they come to us, and we do the best we can to advocate and build those bridges to get that message across. We wanted to talk about, what we're seeing in Fort St. John. I think our last homeless count in Fort St. John, I think we're about 100 plus. And currently we have approximately 20 tents in the downtown area in some parks. What are we doing to address the situation, and what are we doing to help these people?
And certainly, even if the power doesn't lie with the municipalities, as you mentioned, you and your councillors, they're the ones they see on the street, they're community members as well. So even if it is a problem that, whether it should or shouldn't lies on higher powers, it comes to you. So having a little bit more power and, as you said, more teeth would certainly help improve things, because it's harder to get things done and understand how important things are if you're sitting in Vancouver or Victoria.
And I want them to know, they're aware of what's happening in Vancouver, and Hastings area, but I haven't had the Premier up here in quite some time, and he may not know. I was able to share with him, here's a letter from a business person, and this is what I've heard from residents. This is how it's affecting their ability to do business, and even for the safety of their staff. But also for residents going, we've invested a lot of money in upgrading our parks. Look fantastic. I am so pleased with what we're doing. And the province is telling us, as a municipality, we cannot prevent people from camping in open spaces and parks. But yet, they have property and they have no camping signs on provincial property. And I'm going, that's very interesting. Why are those two different rules? That being said, I do not have any extra tools or resources or finances to help us hire more staff. Regardless, I think that there's a problem. You got to do something about it. That's what residents demand and they expect. We had city staff work in conjunction with a contractor and the RCMP, the Car 60 program, which provides mental health support. And we started doing a cleanup. regardless whether it falls under our mandate or not, our residents deserve to have a clean, safe community. And last week we started doing cleanup, and we're going to be more proactive and stay on top of things faster. And from there, I think we should send the province a bill.
Certainly. And speaking of province, when we've talked a little bit about premiers and ministers, we are, of course, as of Saturday, officially in the 2024 provincial general election. How does that impact the meetings and the decisions that municipalities such as Fort St. John make when they're going to this UBCM? How does that change what's discussed and kind of how you approach these ministers and their staff?
The work of government continues regardless if there's an election coming up or not, whether, whoever's in that seat today or tomorrow. The wheels are already turning and they will continue. There's many promises that are being made, by various parties and independents. The good news is that the work will continue going. In our area, I was asked this morning on an interview with CBC, how do we see the election going? In the north, our community has traditionally supported conservative-minded candidates. I believe for the province, we will have a conservative candidate, whether it's one backed by a larger business or one who is an independent. They both have different strengths and bring different assets to the table. One has the bigger machine backing that one, and another one, if that person is so elected and to represent our area, also will bring a lot to the table. That individual can speak specifically, with more of a laser focus as to what the area constituents want, instead of having to follow party politics. They can also have more opportunities to speak. And there's also a strong opportunity to help determine what policies are put into place when votes are needed.
Okay, so there's pros and cons to each. But as you mentioned, it doesn't really matter whether we have a full change of ministers. These meetings are still important. The convention still goes on. And it's also, I imagine, important for municipalities to speak with each other in that setting as well, not just with the ministers.
It is. And I have full respect for the work that the ministers do. We knew the writ was going to be dropped immediately after UBCM. Who was very important around the table is the minister's deputy minister and the staff that are there, because they take very detailed notes as to what's discussed, what our asks are. We also make sure we leave a package with them to say, we know you're meeting with a lot of people, we just wrote it down for you. Here's just a few things. But we also, when we go there, with our complaints, but we also go there with solutions and our asks. So whenever, we have an issue, we always try to go there with 2 or 3 things, that we would like to see out of it. Sometimes someone's trying to help you, but if they don't understand what you need, then they're just going to be grasping at straws. And with their best intentions, we can help make that faster and smoother. Similar to one of our other minister meetings with Anne King, we went to talk to her to say that when new policies and procedures are being brought in, such as, regarding housing is a good example. While I do agree that there's areas of the province that housing is a challenge, and having densification is important, in Fort St. John, having 4 units on a lot does not make a lot of sense, because where do we put the snow? Where do we park the vehicles? Not to mention Fort St. John, we're blessed with land, and we would welcome more building on that. So sometimes a policy is brought in quickly because they see an urgent need. But I think at the same time, while they're coming up with this, bringing in, doesn't have to be an elected official from the north, but talk to our planning and engineering department, bring them in and let them, try and avoid some hurdles later down the road and having to backtrack, just to have more, clean direction that we can implement and get to work faster. And
certainly policy is important, but especially with the province's largest British Columbia, one policy that will work in the south won't necessarily work in the north, as you've touched on.
Agreed.
And you have to be able to support municipalities who are very local, on the kind of in the game, as it were, as players rather than as coaches. It's important for you to have structure, but also the fluidity to match the problems that are happening in Fort St. John that might not be happening down in the south.
We, next to like jumping up and down, going, we want the voices in the north to be heard and respected and taken into, decision making. We're dealing with a healthcare crisis, nationwide. The province of BC is not alone on it. But here in the north, like every other community, there are multiple ER closures in the Peace region. I believe today we have an ER closure that's expected at 4 o'clock. And, we want to talk about, what is going on? What can we do about this? Like, how can we stop this from happening? What do we need to do for, recruitment, retention, but also taking, a couple steps back and going, what else needs to be done on this? Like, is it our education system? And then when we have, it just is heartbreaking when you see people downtown, they're struggling. And, they're looking for a way to exist, and it doesn't, it's not conducive with, a community overall. But the plain fact is, it's real, it's there. So what do we do? I see it as a hindrance. There is no detox anywhere near Fort St. John. The closest that we're allowed to send people to is Prince George. Well, that's 5 to 6 hours away. And if it's wintertime, going through the Pine Pass, but you can't just say, okay, I'm going to go. So if you're blessed enough to have someone who will drive you, great. But that doesn't mean there's going to be a bed for you. And that can be weeks, it can be months away. We have to have the services to help people to have that recovery. And I really do believe whoever comes in, with this upcoming election, I wish that if I had a wish, that's one of the priorities. Like, let's stop this revolving wheel. Like, we need to have the services so we can get people mental health support, treatment, detox. We need to get that going. And, they're like, well, where's the dollars coming from? Well, if we're not spending money on, dealing with all this other, encampments and, continually treating the same people, when they're overdosing, that will free up the money from there, and we'll have, God willing, a healthier community overall throughout the province.
No, I completely agree with that. Thank you very much again for joining me, Mayor. And that was Council Corner, powered by the City of Fort St. John. I'm Caitlin Coombs with Energeticcity.ca. We'll see you next time.